Caroline's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she stepped off the stagecoach, and the tall cowboy watching her from across the dirt road saw it. Every trembling finger, every shallow breath, every instinct screaming at her to run. Jack Blackwood had paid for a bride, not a terrified girl who looked like she might bolt back to whatever hell she'd escaped from. But when their eyes met hers, wide with fear, his guarded with doubt, something neither of them expected passed between them. This wasn't going to be the clean arrangement either of them had imagined. This was going to hurt. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and watch this story all the way to the end. Comment below with the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Jack didn't move. He stood there with his hat pulled low, dust settling around his boots, watching this woman who was supposed to be his wife freeze like a deer that had spotted the hunter. Her dress was worn thin at the sleeves, patched badly at the hem, and she clutched a single battered carpetbag like it held every possession she owned in this world, which it probably did. "You Caroline Porter?" She flinched at his voice. Actually flinched. "Yes." The word came out barely above a whisper. Jack felt something tighten in his chest. Anger maybe, or disappointment. He'd written to a woman who'd seemed strong in her letters, someone who could handle ranch life, who wanted a partnership. The woman standing in front of him looked like she'd shatter if he spoke too loud. "I'm Jackson Blackwood. Folks call me Jack." "I know." She still hadn't moved from the stagecoach step. The driver cleared his throat behind her. "Ma'am, I got a schedule to keep." Caroline jerked forward like she'd been pushed, nearly stumbling. Jack's hand shot out instinctively, catching her elbow, and she yanked away so fast she dropped her bag. It hit the ground, split open, and what few belongings she had spilled into the dirt. "I'm sorry." She dropped to her knees, scrambling to gather everything. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "Stop apologizing." She went completely still, hands frozen over a worn nightgown. Jack crouched down, picked up the bag, started putting things back in it. A hairbrush with half the bristles missing. 2 dresses that had been mended more times than they'd been worn new. A small wooden box that rattled when he lifted it. "Don't touch that." The fear in her voice had shifted to something sharper. He handed it to her without opening it. Wasn't going to. Their fingers brushed when she took it, and she pulled back like he'd burned her. Jack stood, offered his hand to help her up. She ignored it, got to her feet on her own, clutching that box against her chest. "The wagon's over there." He nodded toward the street. "Ranch is about an hour out." "All right." She followed him at a distance. Not beside him, not even close to beside him, like she was a prisoner being led to her cell. The ride out started in silence so thick Jack could hear every creak of the wagon wheels, every shift of Caroline's weight on the seat beside him, though beside wasn't accurate. She'd pressed herself as far to the other side of the bench as physics would allow. "Letters didn't mention you were afraid of men." Her head snapped toward him. "I'm not afraid." "You're shaking so hard I can hear your teeth rattling." "I'm cold." "It's 70 degrees. She turned away, jaw set. "Then maybe I'm just not used to being questioned about every breath I take." There it was. The woman from the letters. The one with some spine. Fair enough. Jack kept his eyes on the road. "But if we're going to make this work, you're going to have to stop looking at me like I'm about to hit you." The silence that followed was different. Heavier. "How do you know what that look is?" Her voice had gone quiet again, but there was something in it now. Something that recognized something in him. "I know." She didn't ask how. He didn't offer. They rode another mile before she spoke again. "What happened to your first wife?" Jack's hands tightened on the reins. "Consumption. Took her slow. Took her mean." "Did you love her?" "Yes." "Do you still—" He glanced at her then. Really looked at her. She wasn't as young as he'd first thought. There were lines around her eyes, not from laughter. Her hair, dark and pulled back severe, had streaks of gray she hadn't earned from age. "I love what we had. Don't love what it turned into at the end. Don't love being alone in that house remembering it." Caroline nodded slowly. "That's honest. You asked an honest question. Most men don't answer those. Most men are fools." She almost smiled. Almost. Then it died on her lips like it had been slapped away. The ranch came into view as the sun started dropping behind the mountains. It wasn't much a sturdy house, a barn that needed paint corrals and outbuildings scattered across land that stretched to the horizon. But it was clean, orderly, the kind of place a man built when he had more time than money and more pride than sense. This is it. Jack pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the house. Caroline stared at it like she was memorizing every detail, every escape route. There's a spare room upstairs. You'll sleep there until... He trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. Until you decide if you want to send me back. Until you decide if you want to stay. She looked at him, then really looked at him, and for the first time since she'd stepped off that stagecoach, the fear in her eyes shifted to something else. Confusion, maybe, or the beginning of something that might in time become trust. I don't have anywhere else to go. That's not a reason to stay. It's the only reason I have. Jack climbed down from the wagon, grabbed her bag, and started toward the house. He didn't offer to help her down this time. She managed on her own, following him up the porch steps with those same careful, measured movements. Inside the house was dark until he lit the lamps. The furniture was simple but well made. Everything had its place. Nothing extra, nothing wasted. Kitchen's through there, he pointed. Pumps out back. Privy's past the barn. Your room's upstairs, first door on the left. I'm across the hall. Breakfast is at dawn. We'll figure out the rest as we go. Caroline set her bag down, still holding that wooden box. What do you expect from me? What do you mean? I mean, what did you pay for? What do I owe you? The way she asked it made Jack's stomach turn. Like she was tallying a debt. Like she'd done this calculation before. You don't owe me anything. You're here because we both needed something different than what we had. We'll work the ranch together, share the load, see if this life suits us both. If it doesn't, you're free to leave. Just like that. Just like that. She didn't believe him. He could see it in every line of her body. I'll make dinner. She said it like she was stating a fact, not offering. You don't have to. Yes, I do. She cut him off, and there was something in her voice that told him arguing would be useless. That's what wives do. She walked into the kitchen before he could tell her that wasn't what he wanted. That he'd cooked his own meals for 3 years and managed just fine. That he didn't need a servant. But she was already opening cupboards, checking the pantry, moving around the space with the efficiency of someone who'd learned to make herself useful or suffer the consequences. Jack left her to it. Went outside to tend to the horses, put the wagon away, do all the evening chores that needed doing. When he came back an hour later, there was food on the table, and Caroline was standing by the stove perfectly still, waiting. Sit down. She sat, poured him coffee without asking if he wanted any, waited for him to start eating before she touched her own plate. This is good. It was. Better than good. The woman could cook. Thank you. Where'd you learn? My stepfather liked his meals on time and made right. The way she said stepfather made Jack set his fork down. He the reason you're here? He's one of them. Who are the others? Caroline's hands had started shaking again. She pressed them flat against the table, trying to still them. Does it matter? Might. Why? Because if someone's coming looking for you, I need to know. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. No one's coming. No one cares enough to come. They ate in silence after that. When Caroline started clearing the plates, Jack stood to help. I can do it. So can I. She didn't argue, but she didn't look at him either. They worked side by side close enough that their shoulders almost brushed, and every time they came within inches of touching, she'd flinch away like he was a hot stove. I'm not going to hurt you. Caroline's hands went still in the dishwater. You say that now. I'll say it tomorrow too, and the day after that. However long it takes for you to believe it. Why? She turned to face him, wet hands dripping onto the floor. Why would you do that? Because I remember what it's like to be afraid all the time, and I remember what it took for someone to make me stop. Who? My wife. Before she got sick, she found me after the war when I was... He stopped, shook his head. Different kind of fear than yours, maybe, but fear all the same. Caroline searched his face like she was looking for the lie, for the trap. When she didn't find it, something in her shoulders loosened. Just a fraction. I'll try not to be afraid of you. That's all I'm asking. She nodded, turned back to the dishes. They finished cleaning in silence that felt different than before, less hostile, less desperate. When Caroline went upstairs, Jack gave her space. Sat on the porch with coffee he didn't drink, listening to the sounds of her moving around in the room above him. Footsteps crossing and recrossing the floor, drawers opening, the creak of the bed frame when she finally lay down. Then nothing. He waited another hour before going inside. Stood at the bottom of the stairs listening. No sound from her room. He wondered if she was sleeping or just lying there terrified in the dark, wondering what kind of man she'd traded her old hell for. In the morning, Jack woke to the smell of coffee and found Caroline already in the kitchen, dressed and cooking breakfast, like she'd been up for hours, which she probably had been. "You didn't have to get up this early." "I always get up early." She set a plate in front of him without meeting his eyes. Eggs, bacon. Biscuits that looked better than anything he'd managed in 3 years of cooking for himself. "Thank you." "You're welcome." She sat across from him with her own plate, eating in small, precise bites. "I need to ride the north fence line today. Check for brakes. You can come if you want, or you can stay here." Caroline's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "You're giving me a choice." "Why wouldn't I? Most men don't. I'm not most men." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll come. You ride some. Some meaning you'll stay on the horse, or some meaning you'll fall off and break your neck." That almost smile flickered across her face again. "I'll stay on." They rode out after breakfast, Caroline on a gentle mare that Jack had specifically chosen for her. She handled herself well enough, though she held the reins too tight and sat too stiff in the saddle. The fence line stretched for miles, cutting through scrub and grass, and the occasional stand of cottonwoods. They worked in silence. Jack checking the posts and wire, Caroline watching, learning. "Hand me those pliers." She did, still keeping distance between them. "You can come closer. I don't bite." "I know." "Do you?" Caroline didn't answer, but she did step closer. Close enough that he could smell the soap she'd used that morning. Something floral. Something that reminded him of before. They worked like that for the better part of the morning, Jack fixing breaks in the fence, Caroline handing him tools, asking questions about the ranch, about the land, about what needed doing and when. "Why'd you want a mail-order bride?" The question came out of nowhere. Jack twisted another piece of wire before answering. "Got tired of being alone, tired of cooking for one, tired of having no one to talk to but the horses." "You could have married someone local." "Could have. Didn't want to." "Why?" "Because everyone local knew Sarah, knew what we had, knew what I lost. Couldn't court anyone without comparing them to her ghost." Caroline was quiet for a while. Then, "I understand that. You got ghosts too. Everyone does." "What are yours?" She handed him another section of wire, her fingers careful not to touch his. "The kind that don't stay buried." They moved down the fence line, the conversation dropping off again into comfortable silence. Around midday, they stopped to rest the horses and eat the lunch Caroline had packed that morning. "This is good land." She stood looking out across the rolling hills, shading her eyes against the sun. "It is. Hard land, too. Takes work to make it pay." "I'm not afraid of work." "Didn't figure you were. What are you afraid of?" The question caught Jack off guard. "What makes you think I'm afraid of anything?" "Because you asked me to come here, to be your wife, to share this life, and you're treating me like I might disappear if you breathe too hard." She turned to look at him. "That's fear." Jack leaned back against a fence post, considering. "I'm afraid you'll leave, that you'll decide this isn't worth it, and I'll be alone again." "That's honest. You keep asking honest questions. And you keep answering them. Doesn't happen often. Never happened before." They mounted up and rode back to the ranch as the sun started its descent. Caroline was more relaxed in the saddle now, her hands easier on the reins, her posture less rigid. That night over dinner, she asked him about the ranch's history. Jack told her about his father building the place from nothing, about his mother dying when he was young, about Sarah coming here as a school teacher and staying as his wife. She loved this place. He pushed food around his plate. Loved what it could be. What we were going to make it. And then she got sick. And then she got sick. Caroline set her fork down. My mother died when I was 8. Fever took her fast. My father remarried 6 months later. Your stepfather? Yes. The one who taught you to be afraid. She didn't answer, but she didn't have to. He hit you. Among other things. Jack's hands clenched into fists under the table. Where is he now? Dead. Heart gave out last winter. Good. Caroline's eyes snapped up to meet his. You mean that? Yes. Most people would say I should forgive him, that he was family. Most people are fools. Some men don't deserve forgiveness. Something changed in Caroline's face then. Some wall that had been holding firm started to crack. Not break, not yet, but crack. I was afraid you'd be like him. I know. I'm still afraid. I know that too. But less than yesterday. Jack nodded. That's something. They cleared the dishes together again, working in the same careful proximity they'd managed the night before. When Caroline headed upstairs, Jack caught her hand, gentle, loose enough that she could pull away if she wanted. Thank you for giving this a chance, for giving me a chance. Caroline looked down at where his fingers circled her wrist. Not holding, just touching. You're welcome. She pulled her hand free but slowly. Not in fear, just in caution. Progress. Over the next few days, they fell into a rhythm. Up at dawn breakfast together, work during the day, sometimes separate, sometimes side-by-side dinner together. Evenings on the porch, talking until the stars came out. Caroline started asking more questions. About the ranch, about the cattle, about how to handle the horses, how to mend tack, how to read the weather in the clouds rolling in from the mountains. Jack started asking questions too. Careful ones. About where she'd grown up, what she'd wanted to be before life got in the way. What made her laugh, though she couldn't seem to remember the last time she had. I used to paint. She told him one evening, her voice soft. Watercolors mostly. Flowers and birds. My mother taught me. What happened to your supplies? My stepfather burned them, said they were a waste of time. I could get you more, if you wanted. Caroline turned to look at him. Surprise clear on her face. Why would you do that? Because you want them, because it would make you happy. That's reason enough. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. That night, Jack lay in bed listening to her move around across the hall. The same restless patterns he'd heard every night. The pacing, the long silences, the occasional sound that might have been crying. He wanted to go to her, to tell her she was safe now, that whatever nightmares were chasing her couldn't reach her here. But he knew that pushing would only make her run, so he waited. And the next morning, when she came downstairs with her hair braided loose instead of pulled tight, when she smiled, really smiled at something he said over breakfast, Jack felt something shift in his chest. Hope maybe, or the beginning of something that looked a lot like it. That hope lasted exactly 3 days before everything went to hell. Caroline was in the barn mucking stalls when Jack found her, and the moment he walked in she knew something was wrong. His face had gone pale, his jaw set in that way she'd learned meant he was working hard to keep something contained. There's a man at the house asking for you. Her pitchfork clattered to the ground. What? Says his name's Thomas Porter, says he's your brother. The blood drained from Caroline's face so fast, Jack thought she might faint. He moved toward her, but she backed away, shaking her head. No, that's not possible. Thomas wouldn't, he can't be here. He's on the porch. Been waiting about 10 minutes. Did you tell him I was here? Didn't have to. He already knew. Caroline's breathing had gone shallow and quick. What does he want? Says he needs to talk to you. Says it's family business. I don't have any family business. Her voice cracked on the last word. Jack stepped closer, slow and careful. You want me to send him away? Yes. No, I don't. She pressed her hands to her face. I don't know. Caroline, look at me. She did, and the terror in her eyes made Jack's gut twist. Is he dangerous? Not like that. Not the way you mean. Then what way? She shook her head, unable or unwilling to answer. You don't have to see him if you don't want to. I'll tell him to leave. He can't make you do anything. You don't understand. Thomas doesn't make people do things. He convinces them. He talks and talks until you can't remember why you ever said no in the first place. Jack held out his hand. Then we'll go talk to him together. And every time he says something that makes you doubt yourself, you look at me. I'll help you remember. Caroline stared at his hand like it was a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. Then she took it, her fingers cold and trembling in his. They walked to the house together, Caroline's grip tightening with every step. The man on the porch stood when he saw them, and Jack sized him up in an instant. Mid-30s, well-dressed, smooth smile that didn't reach his eyes. The kind of man who sold things people didn't need and made them grateful for the privilege. Caroline. He opened his arms like he expected her to run into them. It's so good to see you. She didn't move. Thomas, aren't you going to introduce me to your husband? His eyes slid to Jack, assessing, calculating. This is Jackson Blackwood. Jack, this is my half-brother Thomas. Jack didn't offer his hand. What do you want? Thomas's smile faltered. That's rather rude for someone who's never met me. Answer the question. I'm here to see my sister, to make sure she's all right. When she left so suddenly, we were all very worried. Caroline's voice was barely audible. The family. What's left of it anyway? There is no family. Not anymore. That's a harsh thing to say, Caroline, especially after everything we've been through together. Jack felt Caroline's hand tighten in his. She asked you a question. Who's we? Thomas sighed, the picture of wounded patience. Our Aunt Margaret, our cousins, the people who care about Caroline and want to make sure she's safe. She's safe. Jack's voice was flat. Now you can leave. I'd like to hear that from her if you don't mind. I do mind. Jack. Caroline's voice was small, but steady. It's all right. Let him say what he came to say. Thomas's smile widened. Thank you, Caroline. You always were the reasonable one. He gestured to the porch chairs. Shall we sit? No. Caroline stayed exactly where she was. Say what you need to say, and go. The smile slipped a fraction. All right then. Aunt Margaret is sick. The doctor says she doesn't have long. She's asking for you. Caroline went very still. Margaret's sick. Very. She's been asking for you every day. Keeps saying she needs to make things right before she passes. Make what right? I don't know. She won't tell me. She'll only speak to you. Jack felt the conflict radiating off Caroline in waves. When did she get sick? About a month ago. We tried to find you, but you disappeared without a trace. Because I left. Without telling anyone where you were going. Do you know how worried we've been? You never worried about me before. Caroline's voice had an edge now. Why start now? Thomas's expression shifted to hurt. That's not fair. I know things were difficult after Father died, but we're still family, Caroline. Family looks after each other. Your father looked after me by making sure I knew exactly how unwanted I was. You looked after me by standing there watching while he did it. I was just a boy. You were 16, old enough to know better, old enough to do something. Thomas's jaw tightened. I'm not here to argue about the past. I'm here because Margaret is dying and she wants to see you. Is that so unreasonable? Caroline looked up at Jack, and he could see the war happening behind her eyes. The part of her that wanted to refuse to protect herself, and the part that couldn't ignore a dying woman's request, even if that woman had failed her too. How long does she have? A week, maybe 2. Where is she? Still in Denver, at the house. That's 4 days' travel from here. I have a wagon. We could leave tomorrow. Jack's voice could have cut glass. Well, I assumed Caroline would need an escort. She has an escort. Me. Thomas looked between them, something calculating in his expression. Of course. I meant no offense. I just thought, given how new your marriage is, you might not want to leave your ranch for that long. The ranch will survive. Will it? Thomas's tone was just slightly too casual. I passed through town on my way here. Heard you've been having trouble with your cattle. Something about ticks. Jack went very still. Where'd you hear that? The general store. People talk. He shrugged. Seems like a bad time to leave for a week or more, especially with Roundup coming. How do you know about Roundup? I grew up around ranches. Father had land before he sold it. Thomas turned to Caroline. You could come with me, just for a few days. Say goodbye to Margaret, come right back. Your husband could stay here, tend to his ranch, and you'd be home before he even missed you. No. Jack's voice was absolute. I wasn't asking you. I don't care. The answer's no. Thomas's smile was all teeth now. Caroline, do you let your husband make all your decisions for you? That doesn't sound like the independent woman I remember. Caroline's hand slipped out of Jack's. Don't. Don't what? Point out that you've traded one controlling man for another. Thomas, stop. I'm just trying to help you see clearly. You ran away from Father's house to escape his control. Now you're in another man's house, following his rules, doing what he tells you. How is this any different? It's different because I chose this. But her voice wavered. Did you just run to the first man who offered you an escape? Jack took a step forward. You need to leave, now, or what you'll throw me off your property. Very chivalrous. Thomas looked at Caroline. Is this what you want? A man who solves problems with his fists. I haven't touched you. Yet. Thomas held his ground. Caroline, I'm staying at the hotel in town. I'll be there for 2 more days. If you want to see Margaret before she dies, come find me. If not... He shrugged. I'll tell her you couldn't be bothered. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, sister. You of all people should know that. He tipped his hat to Jack. Nice meeting you, Blackwood. Take care of my sister. She's more fragile than she looks. He walked to his horse, mounted up, and rode away without looking back. Caroline stood frozen on the porch, her whole body trembling. He's lying. Jack's voice was rough. About Margaret, about all of it. Maybe. Not maybe, definitely. Men like that don't do anything without an angle. You don't know him. I know enough. I've met 100 Thomas Porters. They're all the same. Caroline turned to face him, and there were tears on her cheeks. What if he's not lying? What if Margaret really is dying, and I'm the only one who can give her peace? Then she should have given you peace when you needed it. She tried, in her own way. Not hard enough. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. Caroline sank down onto the porch steps, her head in her hands. Margaret was my mother's sister. When my mother died, she wanted to take me in, but my father wouldn't let her. Said I was his daughter, and he'd raise me as he saw fit. When he remarried and things got bad, I wrote to her, begged her to help me. She wrote back saying she couldn't go against my father's wishes, that it wasn't her place. So she abandoned you. She was afraid. My stepfather was... Caroline's voice broke. He was the kind of man people were afraid of. And your brother? Thomas did what he always does, protected himself first. So why would you trust anything he says now? Because maybe people change. Maybe Margaret regrets what she didn't do. Maybe she wants to make it right before she dies. Or maybe Thomas needs something from you, and he's using a dying woman as bait. Caroline looked up at him, her eyes red. What could he possibly need from me? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. How? I'm going into town, going to ask some questions. Jack, you're not going to Denver with him, Caroline. I don't care if Margaret's on her deathbed or dancing a jig. You're not getting in a wagon with that man. You can't tell me what to do. I'm not telling you. I'm asking you. Please don't go with him. If you want to see Margaret, we'll go together, after I figure out what game your brother's playing. Caroline wiped her eyes. What if there's no game? What if I'm just being paranoid? Then I'll apologize for doubting him. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. Jack rode into town an hour later, leaving Caroline at the ranch with strict instructions to stay put and not let anyone on the property. She'd agreed, though the look in her eyes told him she was still torn. The hotel was easy enough to find. Small town only had one. Thomas was in the saloon next door drinking whiskey and playing cards with 3 men who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Jack watched through the window for a few minutes, seeing how Thomas worked. The easy laugh, the self-deprecating jokes, the way he let the other men win just enough to keep them in the game. Classic con man. He waited until Thomas left the saloon, then followed him into the alley behind the hotel. We need to talk. Thomas spun around his hand, going to his jacket where a gun probably sat. When he saw Jack, he relaxed, smiled. Mr. Blackwood, I didn't expect to see you here. What do you want from Caroline? I told you, Margaret wants to see her. Try again. I don't know what you mean. Jack closed the distance between them, slow and deliberate. You show up out of nowhere with a convenient sob story about a dying relative. You try to separate Caroline from me. You make sure she feels guilty enough to come running. That's not family concern, that's manipulation. You have a very suspicious mind. I have a realistic mind. Men like you don't do anything without a reason. What's yours? Thomas's smile faded. You really want to know? Yes. Fine. There's an inheritance. From our stepfather. A considerable one. But the will stipulates that both his children have to be present to claim it. Caroline's share and mine. Caroline's not his child. Legally she was. He adopted her when he married her mother. So you need her to get your money. Our money. She'd get half. And you came all this way to tell her that? No. I came all this way because if she doesn't show up within 30 days of his death, her share goes to charity. My share goes to charity. Everything we're owed gone. When did he die? 3 weeks ago. So you've got 1 week left. 6 days, actually. Jack studied him. What about Margaret? Thomas had the decency to look uncomfortable. Margaret is fine, healthy as a horse. You lied. I improvised. Caroline wouldn't have come for money, she's too proud. But family obligation that she'd respond to. Get out of town. Excuse me? You heard me. Get on your horse and get out of town. Don't come back. Don't write to her. Don't contact her ever again. Thomas's expression hardened. That's not your decision to make. Yes, it is. She's my wife. A wife you've had for what, 2 weeks? You think you know her better than her own blood. I think I know you well enough to keep you away from her. She has a right to that money. She has a right to live without vultures circling. That money could change her life, could change both your lives. We don't need it. Everyone needs money, Blackwood. Don't be a fool. Better a fool than whatever you are. Thomas pulled out a piece of paper, thrust it at Jack. Fine. You want to protect her so badly? Read that. It's a copy of the will. Every word is legal and binding. If she doesn't claim her inheritance in 6 days, she loses everything. And before you get too noble about refusing money on her behalf, maybe consider that it's not your choice to make. It's hers. Jack took the paper, scanned it. The legal language was dense, but the meaning was clear. Caroline was entitled to $15,000 a fortune, but only if she traveled to Denver and signed the papers before the deadline. Why didn't you just tell her the truth? Because she hates me. She hates all of us. And she'd rather die poor than take anything from our stepfather's estate, even though she's the one who earned it, who survived him. Earned it how? Thomas's face went cold. You really don't know what he did to her, do you? I know enough. No, you don't. Because if you did, you'd understand why that money is the least of what she's owed. Why I'm trying to make sure she gets it, even if she never forgives me for standing by while it happened. Guilt's a terrible motivator. So is watching your sister live in fear for the rest of her life because she's too stubborn to take what's rightfully hers. Jack folded the paper, put it in his pocket. I'll talk to her, and tell her what the truth. Always. She won't believe you. She'll think I put you up to it. Then I'll show her the will. Let her decide. Thomas nodded slowly. And if she decides to go, then we'll go together. But you stay away from her. Whatever business needs to be conducted in Denver, you do it through a lawyer. You don't talk to her, don't look at her, don't exist in the same room if you can help it. That's rather harsh. That's generous compared to what I want to do. Which is, make sure you never come near her again. Thomas studied Jack for a long moment. You really do care about her. Yes. It won't be enough, you know. Whatever you feel for her, whatever you think you can give her, it won't be enough to fix what was broken. I'm not trying to fix her. I'm trying to stand beside her while she fixes herself. Romantic sentiment. Reality's different. I'll take my chances. Thomas walked toward his horse, then stopped. For what it's worth, I hope you're right. I hope you can give her what we couldn't. What she deserves. What she deserves is people who don't lie to her. Fair point. Thomas mounted up. I'll be at the hotel until tomorrow evening. After that, I'm heading to Denver, with or without her. Clock's ticking, Blackwood. Make sure she knows what she's walking away from." He rode off, leaving Jack standing in the alley, holding a will that was going to shatter whatever fragile trust Caroline had started to build. When Jack got back to the ranch, Caroline was in the garden. She'd started planting herbs and vegetables in neat rows. She looked up when she heard the horse, and her face went carefully blank. "What did you find out?" Jack dismounted, walked over to her. "Thomas lied about Margaret." "I knew it." But there was no satisfaction in her voice. "What does he really want? You need to sit down for this." "I'm fine standing." "Caroline, just tell me, Jack. Whatever it is, just say it." So he did. Told her everything. The inheritance, the deadline, the will in his pocket. He watched her face go from disbelief to anger, to something he couldn't quite name. When he finished, she held out her hand. "Show me." He gave her the paper. She read it once, twice, 3 times. Then she very carefully folded it and handed it back. $15,000. Yes. For surviving him. Caroline? No. She shook her head. No, you don't get to soften this. That's what Thomas said, isn't it? That I earned it, that I survived him. Yes, he's right. She started pulling up weeds with vicious intensity. I did survive. I lived through every beating, every cruel word, every night I prayed I wouldn't wake up in the morning. And now he's dead, and he left me money. Like that makes it better. Like that erases anything. It doesn't erase it, but it could give you options. I don't want his money. It's your money. The will says so. The will can go to hell. She threw a handful of weeds aside. I don't want anything from him. Not his money, not his apology from beyond the grave. Nothing. That's $15,000, Caroline. Do you understand what that means? What you could do with that? Buy a new life. Buy away the memories. Buy back the years he stole from me. Her voice was rising. Money doesn't fix this, Jack. It doesn't fix anything. No, but it could give you freedom. Real freedom. Not just running from one bad situation to a slightly better one. She went very still. Is that what you think this is? A slightly better situation? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? I meant that you married me because you had no other choice. You said so yourself. You had nowhere else to go. So what if you had choices? What if you had money of your own, enough to live independently? Would you still be here? Caroline stared at him like he'd slapped her. You want me to take the money and leave? No, I want you to take the money and stay. But because you choose to not, because you have to. That's the same thing. It's not. And you know it. She turned away from him, her shoulders shaking. I can't go back to Denver. I can't be in that house again. Then we'll get a hotel. We'll do the business through lawyers. You never have to see the house or Thomas or any of them. You don't understand. Just being in that city. Her voice cracked. I can feel him there, even though he's dead, even though he can't hurt me anymore. I can feel him. Jack moved behind her, not touching but close. Then I'll be there too. And every time you feel him, you look at me. Just like we did today. I'll help you remember he's gone, and you're not. Why? She spun to face him, tears streaming down her face. Why would you do this for me? We barely know each other. You don't owe me anything. Because you're my wife. Because I'm starting to... He stopped, the words catching in his throat. Starting to what? Care about what happens to you. More than I should this soon. Caroline searched his face, looking for the lie. You mean that? Yes. Even though I'm broken. Even though I come with more ghosts than a graveyard. You're not broken. You're surviving. There's a difference. She laughed, but it was bitter. You don't know everything I survived. You don't know what he... She stopped, shook her head. You don't know. Then tell me. I can't. Why? Because if I tell you, you'll look at me different. You'll see me different. And I can't. Her voice broke completely. I can't lose this. Not yet. Not before I've even had a chance to believe it's real. Jack stepped closer, slowly raised his hand to her face. She flinched, then forced herself to hold still. His palm cupped her cheek, his thumb wiping away tears. "Nothing you tell me will change how I see you." "You can't promise that." "I can. And I am." They stood like that for a long moment, her leaning into his touch, despite every instinct screaming at her to pull away. "We have 6 days to decide." Jack's voice was gentle. 6 days to figure out if this money is worth the trip, worth the memories, worth everything it will cost you to claim it. "What do you think I should do?" "I think you should do whatever lets you sleep at night. Money's not worth peace of mind." "But it could mean freedom." "You're already free, Caroline. You left. You made it out. That's freedom." "Then why doesn't it feel like it? Because freedom's a process, not a destination. And sometimes the hardest part isn't escaping. It's learning to live after you do." Caroline closed her eyes, leaning fully into his hand now. "I'm so tired, Jack. Tired of being afraid. Tired of running. Tired of looking over my shoulder." "Then stop running. Stay here. Build something with me. Forget the money. Forget Thomas. Forget all of it. Just stay. And if I can't forget, then we'll deal with it together." She opened her eyes, met his gaze. "You really mean that?" "Every word." "Why?" "Because somewhere in the last 2 weeks you stopped being the stranger I paid for and started being the woman I wake up wanting to see across the breakfast table. And that matters more to me than any inheritance." Caroline's breath hitched. "Jack, you don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for anything in return. I'm just telling you the truth, so you know. So when you make your decision about Denver, about the money, about all of it, you know." She nodded, unable to speak. They stood there as the sun set, Jack's hand still on her face, Caroline's tears still falling. And something between them shifted, not fixed, not healed, but shifted, toward something that might, with time and patience and more honesty than either of them was comfortable with, become real. That night, Caroline didn't sleep. Jack could hear her pacing in the room above his back and forth until he couldn't stand it anymore. He climbed the stairs, knocked on her door. "Come in." She was standing by the window in her nightgown, arms wrapped around herself. She didn't turn when he entered. "I keep thinking about that money." Her voice was hollow. $15,000. "Do you know what I could do with that?" "Tell me." "I could buy my own ranch. Smaller than this one, but mine. I could hire people to work it so I'd never have to depend on anyone again. I could travel, see places I've only read about in books. I could—" She stopped, her shoulders sagging. "I could run away again. That's what I'd do. Take the money and run." "Running's not always wrong." "It is when it's all you know how to do." Jack leaned against the doorframe. "What if we went to Denver, got the money, came back here? Would you still want to run?" She finally turned to face him. "I don't know. And that scares me more than anything. That I might take that money and wake up one morning and decide this, the ranch, all of it wasn't what I wanted after all. That's the risk I'm willing to take." "Why?" "Because the alternative is you spending the rest of your life wondering what if. And that'll poison this just as surely as running would." Caroline crossed the room, stopped a few feet from him. "What if I don't come back?" "Then you don't come back. You'd just let me go. I'd hate it, but yes, I'd let you go." She studied his face in the dim lamplight. "You're not like any man I've ever known." "Good. Most men you've known were bastards." That almost smile crossed her face. "True. So we go to Denver, we get your money, we come back and figure out what happens next, together. What if Thomas tries something? Then I'll handle Thomas. What if the house? What if being there? Then we leave, middle of the night if we have to. The money's not worth your sanity." Caroline took a shaky breath. "All right. All right. We'll go to Denver. But Jack, if I start to break, if I can't handle it, promise me you'll get me out of there." "I promise." She nodded, wrapped her arms around herself again. "I should try to sleep." "You should." But neither of them moved. "Jack, would you—" She stopped, shook her head. "Never mind. It's foolish." "What?" "Would you stay? Just until I fall asleep. I know it's not proper, but I'll stay." Relief washed over her face. She climbed into bed, pulled the covers up to her chin. Jack settled into the chair by the window, tipped his hat over his eyes. "Thank you." "You're welcome." An hour later, her breathing finally evened out into sleep. Jack waited another 30 minutes to be sure, then slipped out of the room as quietly as he'd come. They left for Denver 2 days later, taking the train instead of the wagon. Caroline had said she couldn't bear 4 days on the road with nothing but her own thoughts. Jack agreed, though the train tickets cut deep into his savings. Thomas was waiting at the Denver station when they arrived, looking surprised to see Jack beside Caroline. "I didn't think you'd come." He directed the comment to Caroline, ignoring Jack entirely. "I'm here for the money, not for you." "Fair enough." Thomas gestured to a waiting carriage. "I've arranged for rooms at the Benson Hotel. Separate rooms, of course. We'll find our own accommodations." Jack's tone left no room for argument. "The will reading is tomorrow at 10. Attorney's office on Larimer Street. Don't be late." Caroline climbed into the carriage without responding. Jack followed, and they rode through Denver in silence. Caroline's hands were clenched so tight in her lap, her knuckles had gone white. "You all right?" "No." Her eyes were fixed on the passing streets. "I can smell it. The city. It smells the same." "We can leave right now. Catch the next train back." "No, I came this far. I'm seeing it through." They checked into a modest hotel on the opposite side of town from where Thomas had suggested. Jack got 2 rooms connected by a door, left it unlocked on his side. That night, Caroline knocked on the connecting door around midnight. "I can't sleep." "Come sit." Jack was at the small table by the window, going over ranch accounts he'd brought with him. She pulled her shawl tight around her shoulders. "Tell me about your wife, Sarah." "Why?" "Because I need to think about something other than tomorrow." "And you loved her. I can hear it in your voice when you say her name." Jack set down his pencil. "What do you want to know?" "How you met." "She came to town to teach at the schoolhouse. I was bringing cattle to market. She was trying to break up a fight between 2 boys, and one of them knocked her into a water trough." "What did you do?" "Fished her out. She called me an interfering brute and told me to mind my own business." Caroline's lips twitched. "And you fell in love with her?" "Not then. Took about 6 months of her telling me to leave her alone before I wore her down." "What changed her mind?" "Her schoolhouse burned down. Lightning strike. She lost everything, her books, her supplies, months of her students' work. I helped rebuild it. Spent every evening for 3 months working on that building while she supervised and told me I was doing everything wrong." "Were you?" "Probably. But by the time we finished, she'd stopped calling me an interfering brute and started calling me Jack." "And then?" "And then I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. We had 5 good years before she got sick, 2 bad ones after." "Do you regret the bad years?" Jack looked at her sharply. "No." "Why would I?" "Because watching someone you love die that changes you, makes you afraid to love again." "Is that what you think I'm afraid of? Aren't you?" He considered the question. "Maybe I was, before you came. But watching Sarah die taught me something important." "What?" "That loving someone is worth the pain of losing them, every time, no matter what." Caroline's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know if I'm brave enough to believe that." "You don't have to believe it yet. Just don't close yourself off from the possibility." She wiped her eyes, stood. "I should go. Let you sleep." "Caroline." "Yes. Whatever happens tomorrow, you're not alone in this. Remember that." She nodded, slipped back through the connecting door. The attorney's office was exactly the kind of place Caroline had been dreading. Dark wood paneling, leather chairs, the smell of old paper and older money. Thomas was already there, along with a man Caroline didn't recognize. "This is Mr. Whitmore." Thomas made the introduction. "Father's business partner." Whitmore stood, offered his hand to Jack, ignored Caroline completely. "Blackwood. Heard you married young Caroline here. Brave man." Jack didn't shake his hand. "Why's that?" "Well, given her history." Whitmore's smile was oily. "Most men wouldn't take on damaged goods." Jack's fist connected with Whitmore's jaw before Caroline could blink. The man went down hard, his chair clattering backward. "Jack!" Caroline grabbed his arm. "He's not worth it." Thomas pulled Whitmore to his feet. Get out. You can't. I'm executor of the estate. You're a drunk and a fool. My father kept you around because you were useful, not because you were competent. You're not needed here. Get out before Blackwood breaks more than your jaw. Whitmore stumbled out holding his face. The attorney cleared his throat. Shall we proceed? Yes. Thomas took a seat, gestured for Caroline and Jack to do the same. Let's get this over with. The will reading was straightforward. Caroline's stepfather had left his estate divided between his two legal children, Thomas and Caroline, $15,000 each plus their choice of personal property from the house. There's one condition. The attorney looked at Caroline. You must enter the house at least once to claim your portion. Your stepfather specified this explicitly. Caroline went pale. Why? I don't know, Miss Porter. I'm simply reading the terms of the will. That's cruel. Jack's voice was hard. Making her go back to that house. Nevertheless, those are the terms. If Miss Porter excuse me, Mrs. Blackwood refuses to enter the house, her portion will be forfeited to charity. Then I forfeit it. Caroline stood. I'm not going in that house. Caroline, wait. Thomas stood too. Just walk in. Stand in the hallway for 30 seconds. That satisfies the will. No. It's $15,000. I don't care. You should care. Thomas moved closer. Do you know why Father put that clause in the will? Do you know what he was doing? Punishing me. Even from the grave. No. Thomas's voice was gentler than Caroline had ever heard it. He was giving you a chance to face what happened. To walk into that house as a free woman instead of a terrified girl. To prove to yourself that he doesn't own you anymore. He never owned me. Didn't he? You've been running from him for how long? 3 years. 4. You left the moment he died because you couldn't stand to be in that city and that house breathing the same air. He owns your fear, Caroline. He always has. And he knew it. So this is what, some kind of twisted final lesson? Maybe. Or maybe he finally felt guilty. Maybe he wanted to give you a reason to confront what he'd done. To walk through that door and realize you survived him. I don't need to walk through any door to know I survived. Don't you? Thomas held her gaze. Because from where I'm standing, you're still letting him control you. Still letting him dictate what you can and cannot do. That's not fair. It's completely fair, and you know it. Caroline turned to Jack. What do you think? I think it's your choice, same as it's always been. That's not helpful. I'm not trying to be helpful. I'm trying to be honest. If you walk into that house and it destroys you, we'll deal with it. If you don't walk into that house and spend the rest of your life wondering if you should have, we'll deal with that too. There's no right answer here, Caroline. Just choices. She looked between Jack and Thomas, then at the attorney who was watching this drama unfold with barely concealed interest. If I go to the house, I want 3 things. Name them. Thomas leaned forward. 1, you're not there. You wait somewhere else. 2, Jack comes with me. 3, if I walk in and can't handle it, we leave immediately and no one questions it. Agreed. Caroline took a shaky breath. When? Now. The sooner it's done, the sooner we can all move on. The carriage ride to the house felt like it took hours, though it couldn't have been more than 20 minutes. Caroline sat rigid beside Jack, her hand locked in his with a grip that was probably cutting off his circulation. You don't have to do this. I know. We can turn around right now. I know that too. The carriage stopped. Caroline didn't move. It's just a house. She said it like she was trying to convince herself. Wood and brick and glass. Nothing that can hurt me. That's right. He's dead. He can't touch me. No, he can't. So why can't I breathe? Jack cupped her face with his free hand. Because courage isn't not being afraid. It's being afraid and doing it anyway. And you, Caroline Blackwood, are the bravest woman I've ever met. I'm not. You are. You survived that man for years. You survived losing your mother, losing your childhood, losing every sense of safety you should have had. You survived it all, and you're still here, still fighting. That's not weakness. That's strength. Tears were streaming down her face now. What if I walk in there and I break? Then I'll help put you back together. What if I can't be put back together? You can. And you will, because you're not that scared girl anymore. You're a woman who crossed half the country to start over, who married a stranger for a chance at something better, who's standing here right now about to walk into her worst nightmare for a chance at freedom. That's not broken, Caroline. That's the opposite of broken. She pressed her forehead to his, breathing hard. I can't do this alone. Good thing you're not alone. They climbed out of the carriage together. The house loomed in front of them, a perfectly ordinary two-story home with a wraparound porch and shuttered windows. Nothing sinister about it. Nothing that screamed of the horrors that had happened inside. Caroline stopped at the foot of the porch steps. He used to make me wait here. After... She couldn't finish. He'd make me stand here and count to 100 before I could go to my room. Said it taught me discipline. Jack's jaw clenched so hard, Caroline heard his teeth grind. Let's get this over with. She climbed the steps, each one seeming to take more effort than the last. The front door was unlocked. Thomas must have arranged it. Caroline's hand shook as she reached for the knob. I'm right here. She nodded, turned the knob, pushed the door open. The smell hit her first. Wood polish and pipe tobacco, and something underneath it all that made her stomach turn. The hallway was exactly as she remembered, narrow, dark, the stairs leading up on the left, the parlor door on the right. Caroline took one step inside, then another. Her breathing had gone ragged. That's far enough. Jack's voice was steady. You're in. Will's satisfied. We can go. But Caroline kept walking. Into the hallway, past the parlor, to the door under the stairs, a closet where she'd been locked more times than she could count. She opened it. Empty. Nothing but darkness and dust and the smell of mildew. He used to lock me in here when I displeased him. Sometimes for hours. Sometimes overnight. Her voice was eerily calm. I used to pray someone would let me out. Anyone. But Thomas would walk right past, and Margaret would pretend she didn't hear me crying, and my stepfather would leave me there until he decided I'd learned my lesson. Caroline. I thought I'd die in this closet. Really believed it. That one day he'd lock me in and forget about me and I'd just disappear. She closed the door, turned to face Jack. But I didn't die. I survived. And now he's the one who's gone, and I'm still here. Something in her face had changed. The fear was still there. But there was something else now, too. Something harder, stronger. I want to see his room. You don't have to. Yes, I do. She climbed the stairs, Jack following close behind. The master bedroom was at the end of the hall. Caroline stood in the doorway staring at the bed where her stepfather had died. Thomas said it was his heart, that he went in his sleep, quick, painless. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Isn't that funny? After everything he put me through, he got to die peacefully. Where's the justice in that? There is no justice in this. No, there isn't. Carolyn walked into the room, stood beside the bed. I used to fantasize about him dying, about watching him suffer the way he made me suffer, about being the one to end it. She looked at Jack. Does that make me a terrible person? It makes you human. I wanted to kill him, more than once. Came close to trying. But I was too afraid. Afraid of what would happen if I failed. Afraid of becoming like him. You're nothing like him. How do you know you didn't see what he turned me into? The things I did to survive. Whatever you did to survive. That's different. Caroline picked up a photograph from the bedside table. Her stepfather in his prime, stern-faced and cold-eyed. She stared at it for a long moment, then dropped it in the trash bin beside the bed. I'm done being afraid of you. She said it to the room, to the ghost, to the memory. I'm done letting you haunt me. You're dead, and I'm alive, and that's how it's going to stay. She walked out of the room without looking back. Downstairs, she grabbed a lamp from the hallway table, carried it outside, and smashed it on the porch. The glass shattered, oil spilling across the wood. Caroline, what are you doing? Something I should have done years ago. She went back inside, grabbed another lamp. And another. Smashed them all. Then she started on the china in the dining room. Plates, cups, saucers, everything that her stepfather had valued, everything he'd insisted be kept perfect. She destroyed it all while Jack watched, knowing better than to try to stop her. When she was done, the house looked like a storm had blown through it. Caroline stood in the middle of the wreckage, breathing hard, her hands cut and bleeding from the broken glass. "Feel better?" "No." She wiped her eyes. "But I feel something. And that's more than I felt when I walked in here." Jack pulled out his handkerchief, wrapped it around her bleeding hand. "Let's get you out of here." "Wait." Caroline looked around the destroyed parlor. "There's one more thing I need." She went to the secretary desk in the corner, opened a hidden drawer Jack would never have known was there. Inside was a small wooden box, the same box she'd protected so fiercely when she first arrived in Wyoming. "My mother's jewelry. It's all I have left of her. I hid it here before I left, because I was afraid my stepfather would destroy it if he found it in my things." She opened the box, and Jack saw a simple gold locket, a pair of pearl earrings, a wedding band. He never found it. He never looked. As far as he was concerned, anything of my mother's had no value. She closed the box, slipped it into her pocket. "Now I'm ready to go." They met Thomas at the attorney's office an hour later. He took one look at Caroline's bandaged hands and raised an eyebrow. "I take it you entered the house." "I did more than enter it." "Should I ask?" "No." Thomas handed her a bank draft. $15,000. It's yours." Caroline took it, stared at it for a long moment. "This doesn't fix anything." "I know. It doesn't make up for what he did, or what you didn't do." "I know that too. But it's mine. I earned it, and I'm taking it." "Good." Thomas looked relieved. "What will you do with it?" Caroline folded the draft, put it in her pocket next to her mother's jewelry box. "Build something. Finally build something instead of just surviving. I'm glad." Thomas hesitated. "For what it's worth, I am sorry. For not protecting you. For being a coward. For all of it." "Sorry doesn't change the past." "No. But maybe it can change the future." Caroline studied her half-brother, this man who'd failed her when she needed him most. "Maybe. But that's not up to me. That's on you. You want absolution. Earn it. Stop being the man who stood by and be someone worth knowing." "I'll try." "Trying's not enough. Do it." She walked out without saying goodbye. Jack followed, leaving Thomas standing alone in the attorney's office with his guilt and his excuses. On the train back to Wyoming, Caroline finally slept. Really slept for the first time since they'd arrived in Denver. Jack watched her, this woman who'd walked into her nightmare and come out the other side, and felt something shift in his chest. He'd been wrong about what he'd told her that first night. He didn't care about her more than he should. He loved her. Completely. Irrevocably. In a way that had nothing to do with obligation or duty or the papers that said she was his wife. And that terrified him more than anything had in years. When Caroline woke up 3 hours later, Jack was still watching her. She blinked disoriented, then sat up quickly. "How long was I asleep?" "Long enough." He handed her the canteen. "We'll be home in about 4 hours." Home. She said the word silently, testing how it felt. Strange. Comfortable. Terrifying. "You're staring at me." "I know." "Why?" "Because I love you, and I don't know what to do about it." "You looked peaceful. Haven't seen that before." Caroline took a drink, handed back the canteen. "I don't feel peaceful. I feel..." She paused, searching for the word. "Empty. Like I left something in that house." "Your fear. Maybe. Or maybe just the last piece of who I used to be." She touched her pocket where the bank draft sat. $15,000. It doesn't feel real. It's real. What am I supposed to do with it? Whatever you want. That's the whole point. She looked out the window at the passing landscape. What if I don't know what I want? Then you figure it out. No rush. Isn't there? She turned to face him. That money makes me independent, Jack. Makes me someone who doesn't need you or your ranch or this marriage. Doesn't that worry you? Should it? Most men would say yes. I'm not most men. No. Her voice was soft. You're really not. They sat in silence for a while, the rhythm of the train filling the space between them. Then Caroline spoke again so quietly Jack almost missed it. "I'm afraid of what comes next." "Why?" "Because in Denver, I had a purpose. Get the money, face the house, survive. But now that's done, and I have to figure out what surviving actually means, what living means. And I don't know if I remember how." Jack moved to sit beside her close enough that their shoulders touched. "Then we'll figure it out together, one day at a time. What if one day I wake up and decide I want to leave? Then you leave. Just like that. Just like that. You make it sound simple. It is simple. You're free to choose. Every day. Every moment. That's what freedom is." Caroline leaned her head against his shoulder, and Jack felt his breath catch. "I'm starting to think freedom's more complicated than I thought." "Most things are." They stayed like that until the train pulled into the station. The ranch looked exactly as they'd left it, but Caroline felt different walking up to the house, like she'd shed a skin somewhere between Denver and here. That night, over dinner, Jack asked what she wanted to do with the money. "I've been thinking about that." Caroline pushed food around her plate. "I want to invest in the ranch, make improvements, hire help so we're not working ourselves to death every day. It's your money. You don't have to spend it on my ranch." "Our ranch." The words came out before she could stop them. "I mean, if that's—" "Say it again." "What?" "Say our ranch again. Want to hear how it sounds." Caroline felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Our ranch." "Better." Jack's smile was genuine. "And yes, if you want to invest, I won't stop you. But Caroline, make sure you're doing it because you want to, not because you think you owe me something." "I don't think I owe you. I think I want to build something, something that's mine, ours, something that can't be taken away." "All right then. We'll talk to the bank tomorrow about what improvements make sense." But the next morning, everything changed. Jack came in from the barn, white-faced and shaking. Caroline looked up from the stove, immediately alarmed. "What's wrong?" "The cattle. Half of them are sick. Some kind of fever. Jenkins found 3 dead already." "Oh, God." "I've got to ride out, see how bad it is. See if we can contain it before we lose the whole herd." "I'll come with you." "No, stay here, if this is contagious." "I'm coming." Her tone left no room for argument. They spent the next 3 days fighting to save the herd. It was brutal work separating sick animals, treating what they could, putting down what they couldn't. Caroline worked beside Jack and the ranch hands until her hands bled and her back screamed in protest. On the 3rd night, Jack found her in the barn, sitting beside a dying calf. "This one won't make it through the night." "I know." Caroline stroked the calf's head. "But she shouldn't die alone." Jack sat down beside her. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. She's ours. That means we stay." They sat there together until the calf took her last breath. Caroline cried, and Jack held her, and neither of them spoke about how many more they'd likely lose before this was over. By the end of the week, they'd lost 40 head of cattle, nearly a third of the herd. The financial loss was devastating. "That's 2 years of work gone." Jack's voice was hollow. "Maybe 3. Caroline sat across from him at the kitchen table, watching him calculate and recalculate figures that wouldn't change no matter how many times he ran them. "Use my money." His head snapped up. "No." "Jack." "I said no. That's your money, your freedom. I'm not taking it because I made a bad gamble on cattle." "You didn't gamble. You couldn't have known they'd get sick." "Doesn't matter. It's still my loss to bear." "Then let me help you bear it. That's what partners do." "We're not partners, not really. We're—" He stopped, seemed to be struggling with something. "We're a convenience, an arrangement. You don't owe me anything." Caroline recoiled like he'd slapped her. "Is that really what you think this is? What else would it be?" "I don't know, Jack. You tell me. Because I thought after Denver, after everything, I thought we were building something real. Real doesn't mean equal. You've got $15,000. I've got a failing ranch and a mountain of debt. That's not a partnership. That's charity." "So my help is charity. But when you helped me in Denver, what was that? Different." "How?" "Because you needed help. I'm supposed to provide it. I'm your husband." Caroline stood so fast her chair fell backward. And I'm your wife. But apparently that only matters when it's convenient for your pride. This isn't about pride. Yes, it is. It's about you being too stubborn to accept help from someone who actually cares about what happens to you. You don't care about me. You care about this ranch because it's your safe place. There's a difference. The words hung in the air between them like a physical blow. You really believe that? Caroline's voice was shaking. After everything, you really think I'm just using you? I think you're confused. I think Denver stirred up a lot of emotions, and you're grateful I was there, but that's not the same as... As what? Say it, Jack. What are you so afraid of? I'm not afraid. You're terrified. You're so scared that I might actually feel something for you, that you're pushing me away before I get the chance to leave on my own. That's not what I'm doing. Then what are you doing? Because from where I'm standing, you're sabotaging the one good thing either of us has found in years. Jack stood, grabbed his hat. I need to check on the herd. It's midnight. I don't care. Jack, don't walk away from this. Watch me. He was out the door before she could stop him. Caroline stood in the empty kitchen, shaking with anger and hurt, and realized she was crying. She didn't see him for 2 days. He slept in the barn, came in for meals when she wasn't there, avoided her completely. Caroline threw herself into ranch work, pushing her body until exhaustion was the only thing she could feel. On the 3rd day, she found him fixing fence on the north pasture. We need to talk. Nothing to talk about. Then I'll talk and you'll listen. She dismounted, walked over to where he was working. I'm investing in this ranch whether you like it or not. I've already spoken to the bank. They're drawing up papers to make me a partner. 50-50 split on everything. Jack's jaw clenched. You had no right. I had every right. It's my money and my choice. And I choose this. I choose us. I choose to stop running and start building. If that makes you uncomfortable, that's your problem, not mine. Caroline. I'm not finished. You want to know why I'm doing this? It's not because I'm grateful. It's not because this is my safe place. It's because for the first time in my life, I found someone who sees me, really sees me, and doesn't turn away. Someone who stood beside me in that house in Denver and didn't flinch when I broke down. Someone who makes me believe I might actually deserve something good. You do deserve something good. That's why you should take that money and build some fantasy life where I'm all alone but financially secure. That's not freedom, Jack. That's just a different kind of prison. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying I want to stay. I'm saying I want to make this work. I'm saying I'm falling in love with you, and you're too scared to let yourself feel the same way. The silence that followed was deafening. Jack set down his tools, turned to face her. You don't love me. You love the idea of me, the safety I represent. Don't tell me what I feel. Someone needs to. Because you're making decisions based on emotions that won't last. And when they fade, when you realize I'm just a broke rancher with more problems than solutions, you'll regret tying yourself to me. You're doing it again, making decisions for me, deciding what I can and cannot handle. I'm trying to protect you. From what? From you. From a life that might actually make me happy. I don't need that kind of protection. Jack. I need a partner who trusts me enough to let me make my own mistakes. And if loving me is a mistake, then it's my mistake to make. But I don't think it is. I think you're the best decision I've ever made. I think this ranch, this life, this chance we have, I think it's all worth fighting for. The question is, do you? Jack stared at her, something warring behind his eyes. I can't give you what you need. What do I need? Security, stability, a man who's got his life together. I need honesty. I need someone who doesn't lie to me or themselves. I need you, Jack. Broke ranch and all. You say that now. I'll say it tomorrow too, and the day after that. However long it takes for you to believe me. She was throwing his own words back at him, and they both knew it. Jack closed his eyes, took a shaky breath. I'm afraid. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of how much it's going to hurt when you leave. I'm not leaving. Everyone leaves. Sarah didn't leave. She died. There's a difference. The result's the same. No, it's not. She didn't choose to go. She fought to stay, and I'm fighting to stay too. But Jack, you have to let me. You have to stop pushing me away every time you get scared. He opened his eyes, and Caroline saw tears there. I don't know how. Then learn. We'll learn together. She closed the distance between them, took his face in her hands. I'm not her. I can't replace what you lost, but I can give you something new, something different. If you'll let me. What if I fail you? What if you don't? Jack pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. I love you. God help me, I love you. And it terrifies me. I know. Caroline held him tight. I know exactly how that feels. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the middle of a broken fence line, both of them crying, both of them scared, both of them choosing to stay anyway. That night, they sat down with the bank papers and made it official. Caroline Porter Blackwood was now equal partner in the Blackwood Ranch, 50-50 just like she'd said. This is insane. Jack signed his name, pushed the papers toward her. You're investing a fortune in a ranch that just lost a third of its value. I'm investing in us. The ranch is just details. Important details. We'll figure it out. We've got enough to rebuild the herd, make improvements, hire proper help. It won't be easy, but it's possible. And if it fails, then we fail together. And we figure out what comes next, together. Jack watched her sign her name with a steady hand, no hesitation. You're sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything. The banker cleared his throat. There's one more matter. The property deed. Currently it's in Mr. Blackwood's name alone. Would you like to add Mrs. Blackwood? Caroline looked at Jack. It's your family's ranch. I don't need my name on the deed. Yes, you do. Jack's voice was firm. Add her name. Equal ownership. Jack, you said we're partners. Partners share everything. That includes the land. But if something happens if I do leave, you'd lose half your ranch. Then I lose half my ranch. But at least I'll know I trusted you. That I believed in us enough to risk it. Caroline's eyes filled with tears again. You mean that? Every word. The banker added her name to the deed, and just like that, Caroline owned something. Really owned something. Not just money or jewelry or the clothes on her back, but land. A home. A future. Thank you. She whispered it, but Jack heard. Don't thank me. You earned this. Every acre. That night they had their first real dinner as partners. Not employer and employee. Not mail-order bride and lonely rancher. Partners. We should celebrate. Caroline raised her water glass. To new beginnings. To facing fears. Jack clinked his glass against hers. And choosing to stay anyway. They drank, and something between them settled. Not fixed, not perfect, but settled into something that felt like it might last. Later, as Caroline headed upstairs, Jack caught her hand. I'm sorry for what I said. About you using me. I didn't mean it. I know, you were scared. I'm still scared. So am I. But I'm also here, and I'm not going anywhere. Promise? I promise. She kissed him then, soft and brief and full of promise. Jack pulled her closer, deepened the kiss, and for the first time since she'd arrived, Caroline didn't pull away, didn't flinch, didn't freeze. She kissed him back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jack rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me tonight. Not in the spare room. With me. Caroline's breath hitched. Jack, not for I just want to hold you. Wake up with you beside me. Actually sleep for once without listening for your footsteps in the room above mine. I've been keeping you awake. Every night since you got here. I didn't know. Well, now you do. So stay. Please. Caroline nodded, unable to speak. They went upstairs together, and for the first time, Caroline slept in Jack's bed. He held her like she was something precious, something he was afraid might disappear, and she let him. Let herself be held. Let herself feel safe. In the middle of the night, she woke from a nightmare. Her stepfather's face, his hands the smell of that closet under the stairs. She jerked awake with a gasp, and Jack was already there. You're safe. You're here. He's gone. I can still feel him. Even now. Even after everything. I know. But Caroline, look at me. Really look at me. She did. He's dead. You're alive. You're in Wyoming in our house in our bed. And I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Neither are you. This is real. What you had in Denver was a nightmare. This is real. Carolyn pressed her face against his chest, breathing in the smell of him soap and leather and wood smoke. Real. Present. Safe. Tell me something true. Something that has nothing to do with the past. Jack thought for a moment. I want to build a bigger barn, add stalls for breeding horses. I think we could make good money on quality stock. Keep going. I want to plant an apple orchard on that south field. My mother used to make apple pie that would make grown men cry. More. I want to take you to see the mountains in the fall when the aspens turn gold. Want to show you how beautiful this place can be when you're not just surviving it. What else? I want to watch you plant that garden you keep talking about. Want to see what you grow when you're not afraid someone's going to destroy it. Jack, I want years with you, Caroline. Decades. Want to grow old on this ranch watching you become the woman you were always meant to be. Want to be the man standing beside you when you finally stop looking over your shoulder. She was crying now, but they weren't sad tears. That's what I want too. All of it. Everything. Then that's what we'll build. Together. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, breathing in sync. And for the first time in longer than either of them could remember, they both slept through the night without nightmares. Morning came, soft and gentle sunlight streaming through the window. Caroline woke first, found Jack still asleep beside her, his face peaceful in a way she'd never seen. She slipped out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake him. Went downstairs and started breakfast. When Jack came down an hour later, there was coffee waiting and eggs on the stove, and Caroline humming something under her breath. You're happy. He said it like a revelation. I am. She turned to face him, surprise clear on her face. I'm actually happy. Good. He pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. Get used to it. Plan on making you happy for a long time. Is that a threat or a promise? Both. They ate breakfast together, made plans for the ranch, talked about the future like it was something they could actually count on. And slowly, carefully, they started to believe it might be true. That happiness lasted exactly 2 weeks before the storm hit, and not the metaphorical kind. Caroline was in the barn when the sky turned that particular shade of green that made every rancher's blood run cold. She looked up, saw the clouds churning, and ran for the house. Jack! He was already coming out, eyes on the horizon. Tornado weather. We need to get the horses in, secure everything we can. They worked fast, hauling equipment into the barn, getting the animals under shelter. The wind picked up so quickly Caroline could barely stay on her feet. Get to the cellar, Jack shouted over the roar. Not without you. I'm right behind you. But he wasn't. He was running toward the north pasture, where 3 horses were still loose, spooked, and running wild. Jack, no. He didn't stop. Carolyn watched him disappear into the swirling dust and made a decision that would have terrified her 3 months ago. She ran after him. The wind was so strong it knocked her sideways. Debris flew past her head branches. Pieces of fence, God knew what else. She couldn't see more than a few feet in front of her. Jack? No answer, just the shriek of the wind. She found him trying to corner a panicked mare, the other 2 horses already racing toward the barn. He saw Caroline and his face went white with fury. What the hell are you doing out here? Helping you. I told you to get to the cellar. And I told you I'm not going anywhere without you. Now stop arguing and let's get this horse. They worked together. Jack on one side, Caroline on the other, slowly backing the mare toward the barn. The wind was getting worse, the sky darker. Caroline could hear something that sounded like a freight train bearing down on them. We're out of time. Jack grabbed the mare's halter, started pulling. Run. They ran. The 3 of them, Jack, Caroline, and the terrified horse, racing against a wall of wind that was trying to tear them apart. Caroline's lungs burned, her legs screamed, but she kept running. They made it to the barn, just as the tornado touched down half a mile away. Jack shoved the horse into a stall, grabbed Caroline, and pulled her down behind a stack of hay bales. If this barn goes, we go with it. You should have stayed in the cellar. If you died out here alone, I'd never forgive myself. Or you. The tornado roared past so close, The barn shook like it was made of paper. Wood splintered. The roof groaned. Caroline buried her face in Jack's chest and prayed. Then, as quickly as it had come, it was gone. They sat there for a full minute, neither one moving before Jack finally spoke. "That was the stupidest, bravest thing anyone's ever done for me." "You're welcome." "I'm serious, Caroline. You could have died. So could you. That's the point. We're in this together, for better or worse. Remember." "I remember. But I didn't think worse would include you chasing me into a tornado." "Then you don't know me very well yet." He pulled back to look at her face. "I'm starting to." The barn had held, but barely. When they emerged, the damage was clear. The north fence was destroyed. 2 of the outbuildings were gone completely. The chicken coop was scattered across 3 acres, but the house was still standing. The main barn was intact, and they were alive. Could have been worse. Jack surveyed the destruction with a rancher's practical eye. Could have been better. True, but we're breathing, that's something. They spent the next week rebuilding. Caroline worked beside Jack and the ranch hands, hammering and sawing and hauling lumber until her hands were covered in blisters. She didn't complain, didn't ask for special treatment, just worked. On the 8th day, Jack found her sitting on what was left of the north fence, staring at the horizon. "You all right?" "I'm thinking." About how 3 months ago, a storm like that would have sent me into a panic, would have triggered every bad memory, every fear, every instinct to hide. But this time, she paused. This time, I ran toward it. Toward you. Toward the thing that scared me. That was reckless. It was love. She turned to face him. "I love you, Jack. Not because you saved me, or gave me a home, or made me feel safe. I love you because you're stubborn and honest and you see me as strong even when I don't see it myself. And I'd run into 100 tornadoes if it meant keeping you alive." Jack sat down beside her, took her hand. "I love you too. So much it scares me sometimes." "Good. Being scared means you care." "Is that what you tell yourself when you wake up from nightmares?" "Sometimes, when they still come." "Do they come often?" "Less than they used to. Some nights I still dream about him, about that house, but more nights I dream about this, about us, about the life we're building." "Good dreams or bad?" "Good, surprisingly good." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over land they owned together. "I got a letter from Thomas." Caroline's voice was casual, but Jack felt her tense. What did he want? To apologize, actually apologize, not just say the words. He's leaving Denver, heading to California. Fresh start. Said he wanted me to know he's trying to be better. "You believe him?" "I don't know. Maybe. Does it matter?" "Depends. Do you need his redemption?" Caroline considered the question. "No, I don't. Whatever peace Thomas finds, that's his journey. Mine is here." "You sure about that?" "Completely." She squeezed his hand. "For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I want to be. With exactly who I want to be with. That's not something I'm willing to gamble on. Even with $15,000 in the bank. Even with $50,000. Money's just money, Jack. This..." She gestured to the ranch, to him, to everything they'd built. "This is real. This matters." Jack pulled her close, kissed her forehead. "You matter. To me. More than anything. I know. Took me a while to believe it, but I know." They walked back to the house together as darkness fell. Inside, Caroline had dinner waiting. She'd gotten good at timing things, at knowing when Jack would be hungry, at reading his moods. "We got an offer on the cattle." Jack said it between bites. "Thompson from the next county over. Wants to buy 50 head if we can deliver by fall." "Can we?" "With the new stock we bought, and the calves from spring, yeah. We can. Profit won't be huge, but it'll put us back in the black." "Then we do it." "You sure that's a lot of work between now and September?" "I'm sure. We didn't invest all that money just to play it safe." Jack smiled. "You sound like a real rancher." "I am a real rancher. Half owner, remember." "How could I forget? You remind me every time we disagree about something." "That's because you still try to make decisions without consulting me." "Old habits." "Break them." Yes, ma'am. They cleaned up dinner together, working in the easy rhythm they'd developed. When Caroline reached for a high shelf, Jack steadied her waist. When Jack nearly dropped a plate, Caroline caught it. Small gestures that spoke of familiarity, of partnership, of trust. Later, as they sat on the porch watching stars come out, Caroline asked the question that had been building in her for weeks. Do you still miss her, Sarah? Jack didn't answer right away. Yes, but different than before. Different how? Before I missed who we were together, the life we had, the future we'd planned. Now I miss the memory, but I don't ache for it. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. It means you're healing. We both are. Yes, we are. Caroline leaned against him, his arm around her shoulders. I never thought I'd have this. Peace, safety, love that doesn't hurt. You deserve all of it. So do you. They stayed like that until the chill drove them inside. Upstairs, they undressed in comfortable silence, climbed into bed together. No awkwardness now. No fear. Just two people who'd chosen each other again and again until the choice became as natural as breathing. In the middle of the night, Caroline woke to find Jack watching her. Can't sleep? Didn't want to. Wanted to watch you. That's not creepy at all. He laughed. Maybe a little. But Caroline, do you know how many nights I laid awake after Sarah died wondering if I'd ever feel anything again? Wondering if the loneliness would just be my life from then on. And now I can't imagine being lonely again. Even when you're driving me crazy arguing about fence posts or cattle feed, I'm not lonely. And that's... His voice caught. That's everything. Caroline rolled to face him, traced his jaw with her finger. I spent so long thinking I was broken, that what happened to me had ruined me for anything good. But you don't look at me like I'm broken. You look at me like I'm whole, because you are whole. You were always whole. You just needed someone to see it. I needed you to see it. She kissed him, then slow and deep, pouring everything she felt into it. Jack responded with the same intensity, his hands gentle but sure. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Caroline made a decision. I'm ready. For what? For all of it. For this to be real in every way. For us to be husband and wife, not just in name. Jack went very still. Caroline, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. I want you. I want this. I'm not afraid anymore. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. What happened next was theirs alone, tender and honest and full of everything they'd been building toward. When it was over, Caroline lay in Jack's arms, tears streaming down her face. Did I hurt you? Jack's voice was panicked. No, God no. I'm crying because I'm happy. Because for the first time in my life, being touched didn't feel like something I had to endure. It felt like something I wanted. Something beautiful. Jack held her tighter. I love you. So damn much. I love you too. Thank you. For what? For being patient. For waiting until I was ready. For making me feel safe enough to want this. You never have to thank me for that. They fell asleep tangled together, and when Caroline dreamed that night, it was only of good things. The months that followed were the happiest of Caroline's life. The ranch prospered. They delivered the cattle to Thompson on time and used the profit to make more improvements. Caroline planted her garden and watched it grow. Jack built the new barn he'd talked about and started breeding horses. They fought sometimes about money, about work, about stupid things that didn't matter. But they always made up, always talked it through, always chose each other. One evening in late fall, as they sat on the porch watching the aspens turn gold, just like Jack had promised, Caroline felt something shift inside her. A final piece clicking into place. I'm not afraid anymore. Jack looked at her. Of what? Of anything. Of storms. Of the past. Of the future. Of loving you. I'm just not afraid. When did that happen? I don't know. Somewhere between the tornado and today. Somewhere between being the woman who stepped off that stagecoach shaking with fear and being the woman who owns half a ranch and can outwork most of the men we hire. You've always been that woman. You just needed to see it. Maybe. Or maybe I needed you to believe in me until I could believe in myself. I'll always believe in you. I know. That's why I'm not afraid. A few weeks later, Caroline got a letter. The handwriting made her freeze. It's from Margaret. She stared at the envelope like it might bite her. Your Aunt Margaret. The one Thomas lied about. Yes. Caroline opened it with shaking hands, read quickly. She's apologizing. Says she heard what happened with the will with Thomas with all of it. Says she was wrong to turn her back on me when I needed help. She wants to visit, to make amends. What do you want to do? Caroline thought about it for a long moment. I want to tell her no. I want to say it's too late, that I don't need her apology or her presence in my life. But I also know what it's like to need forgiveness, to be trying to be better than who you were. And maybe giving her a chance is the final piece of letting go. So she can visit. Yes, but she stays in town, and if she says one word that makes me uncomfortable, she leaves. Those are my terms. Fair enough. Margaret came 2 weeks later. She was older than Caroline remembered, smaller, diminished somehow. They met at the hotel restaurant in town. Margaret stood when Caroline entered, and the first words out of her mouth were, "I'm so sorry." Caroline sat down across from her. Tell me why you didn't help me. I was afraid. Your stepfather he was a powerful man. A frightening man. And I convinced myself that intervening would only make things worse for you. That was a lie you told yourself to feel better about your cowardice. Margaret flinched. Yes, it was. He beat me. Did you know that? I suspected. And you did nothing. I did nothing, and I've regretted it every day since your mother died. But regret doesn't change the past. It doesn't undo what I failed to do. Caroline felt Jack's presence beside her. He'd insisted on coming standing guard in case she needed him. She reached for his hand without looking. No, it doesn't. But it can change the future. Can you live with never being part of my life again? Because that's what happens if you can't be honest about what you did or didn't do. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. I can't change who I was, but I can tell you the truth. I was weak. I chose my own safety over your well-being, and there's no excuse for that. None. No, there isn't. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see what I did, what I failed to do, and I'm sorry. Caroline studied her aunt, this woman who'd failed her when she needed help most, and felt something unexpected. Not forgiveness exactly, but release. I'm not ready to forgive you. Maybe I never will be. But I can accept your apology, and I can tell you that I'm happy now. That I built a life despite everything, and that you have no power over me anymore. None of them do. I can see that. You look strong, whole. I am whole. I always was. I just didn't know it. Margaret nodded, wiped her eyes. Your mother would be proud of you. Yes, she would. They talked for another hour, not about the past, about Caroline's life now, the ranch, Jack, the future she was building. And when they parted, Caroline felt lighter. You all right? Jack asked as they rode home. I'm better than all right. I'm free. Really, truly free. How does it feel? Like I can finally breathe all the way down to my bones. That night, Caroline stood in front of the mirror in their bedroom studying her reflection. She looked different than the woman who'd arrived here 6 months ago. Stronger. Healthier. The fear that had lived in her eyes had been replaced by something else. Confidence. Peace. Love. Jack came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? About how far I've come. About who I was and who I am now. And I like who I am now. I like who we are together. So do I. She turned in his arms, looked up at him. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. For waiting for me. For loving me, even when I didn't think I could be loved. You were always easy to love, Caroline. You just needed to believe you deserved it. I believe it now. Good. Because I plan on loving you for the rest of my life. Hope you're ready for that. I'm ready for everything. As long as it's with you. They stood there holding each other, two people who'd found each other when they both needed saving. Two people who'd chosen to fight for something real instead of settling for something safe. 6 months later, as spring returned to Wyoming, Caroline stood in her garden planting vegetables while Jack worked on the new horse barn. She paused, one hand on her stomach, feeling the flutter of life growing inside her. She hadn't told him yet, wanted to be sure, but now she was sure. Jack. He looked up from his work, saw something in her face, and came running. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, everything's right. She took his hand, placed it on her stomach. We're going to have a baby. Jack's face went through a dozen emotions in as many seconds. Shock, fear, joy, wonder. You're sure? I'm sure. The doctor confirmed it yesterday when I was in town. Caroline. His voice broke. We're having a baby. Yes, we are. He picked her up, spun her around, both of them laughing. When he set her down, they were both crying. I'm going to be a father. And I'm going to be a mother, a real mother. The kind my mother was, the kind who protects and loves and never ever makes her child feel afraid. You're going to be an amazing mother. We're going to be amazing parents, together. They stood there in the garden surrounded by growing things, and Caroline felt the last piece of her old life fall away. She wasn't running anymore. Wasn't hiding, wasn't afraid. She was home. That night, as they lay in bed talking about names and nurseries and the future, Jack said something that made Caroline's heart swell. You know what the best part of all this is? What? Our child is going to grow up knowing they're loved, knowing they're safe, knowing they have parents who chose each other, who fought for each other, who built something real together. That's the legacy we're giving them, not money or land or any of that. Love. Real, honest, hard-won love. Yes. Caroline pressed her hand to her stomach. That's exactly what we're giving them. Months passed. Caroline's body changed, growing round with life. Jack hovered protective and anxious, driving her crazy with his constant worrying. I'm pregnant, not dying. I know, but nothing. I'm healthy. The baby's healthy. Stop acting like I'm going to break. Can't help it. You're precious cargo now. I've always been precious cargo. You're just noticing it now. He laughed, pulled her close as much as her belly would allow. Fair point. When her time came, it was fast and fierce. Jack paced outside the bedroom while the doctor and midwife worked. Every cry from Caroline made him flinch. Every silence made him panic. Then cutting through everything, a baby's first wail. The midwife opened the door, smiling. You have a daughter, Mr. Blackwood. Both mother and baby are healthy. Jack was inside before she finished speaking. Caroline lay exhausted but glowing, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. Come meet your daughter. He sat beside them, stared at the tiny face peeking out from the blankets. She's perfect. She is. Caroline looked up at him, tears streaming. We made her. Together. We made everything together. They named her Sarah Margaret, honoring the past while choosing their own future. And as Jack held his daughter for the first time, feeling her tiny hand grip his finger, he understood something he'd missed before. Love wasn't about replacing what was lost. It was about building something new from the ashes of what had been. It was about choosing each other every day through fear and doubt and storms and joy. It was about standing in the wreckage of your old life and having the courage to build something better. Years later, when people asked Caroline about her journey, how she went from a terrified mail-order bride to a confident ranch owner and mother, she always told them the same thing. I found someone who saw me not for what had been done to me, but for who I was beneath all the fear. And he loved me anyway. That's what saved me. Not the ranch, not the money, not the distance from my past. Him. Us. The life we built together when we both stopped running and started choosing each other. And Jack, standing beside her with their daughter on his hip and their son tugging at his hand, would add his own truth. She saved me too. Made me believe I could love again, could trust again, could build something that wouldn't break just because I was afraid of losing it. We saved each other. That's how this works. They stood together on the porch of their ranch, watching the sun set over land they'd built from nothing, and knew without question that every fear they'd faced, every obstacle they'd overcome, every moment of doubt and terror and pain had been worth it. Because love, real love, the kind that grew from honesty and trust, and choosing each other every single day was always worth fighting for. They'd proven it to each other, to themselves, and now to their children. Fear could be conquered. The past could be released. And two broken people could build something whole together if they just had the courage to try. This was their truth, their legacy, their gift to each other and to the future they'd created together, a love that had transformed fear into strength, doubt into certainty, and two wounded hearts into one unbreakable bond that would endure for all the years ahead.